What's up guys, welcome to this video wherein I explain you what happened during the Second World War. We will go over the most important events of this war chronologically, which means that it's in the order in which they occurred. We got to learn from this if you want your future to be almost flawless. Disclaimer:
there will always be some flaws in your future, count on it.
My name is Jeff, and this is It's Called History. Today, we are going to look at the second of the two world wars. If you haven't seen the first video, then please go watch it. I will only talk about the battles and not events like the Holocaust because I want to talk about them in another video. Please subscribe and like for more videos about history, and let's get into it. After the First World War, our least favorite silly mustache man, Adolf Hitler, was hella mad. This Austrian World War I veteran grew out to become the dictator of Germany. Well, he was mad at the Treaty of Versailles. In this 1919 treaty, Germany was kicked out of the class. They had to give up 10% of their land to countries that were affected by the war. They couldn't put any soldiers in the Rhineland, and speaking about soldiers, the once so great army was reduced to a pathetic 100,000 men. And that wasn't everything. No, there were trials against their leaders. They were held responsible for World War I, even though Austria-Hungary started it. And they had to pay 130 billion gold marks to the other countries, which is almost 400 billion US dollars in today's money. The starving and poor German people were hella mad again, and silly mustache guy used this to gain power. When he eventually got the power he needed, he was like, maybe I could make the living space, Lebensraum, of the Germans a bit bigger. And he did. He and his army walked into Austria without any resistance. After that success, he was like, let's do it again. But suddenly, Britain and France came, and they said, whoa, look, you can invade this part, the Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia, but not the rest. And so, the four horsemen of Europe, Nazi Germany, Britain, France, and Italy, without Czechoslovakia, aka the country that was about to be invaded, signed the agreement. Hitler invaded the Sudetenland, but he continued. Yeah, the Allies didn't do anything because they were too scared to start a new conflict. 1 year and 1 day after the treaty, Germany did it again. In the port of Gdansk, in Western Plata, the first shot of World War II was fired. Together with the Soviet Union, led by Stalin, he invaded Poland. This deal was called the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. After the invasion, they would split up Poland. After this move, England and France declared war again. Then the phony war started, where they didn't really do anything, but it did give them time to prepare for war. When the phony war ended, the battles began. The Allies wanted Sweden to stop exporting ores to Germany through neutral Norway. They asked, but the answer was no. Then, the Winter War started between Finland and the Soviet Union. The Allies could go and help Finland, but to do this they had to go through Sweden, which was coincidentally a good opportunity to control the iron field. But Sweden refused to let them through. Germany was tired of the talking and just wanted to secure the ores, so they invaded Denmark and Norway. Now it was West Europe's turn. In the last war, things didn't go well, so the Germans had to come up with a new tactic. BLITZKRIEG. What the Germans did was sending thousands of refugees towards the Allies to slow the enemy forces down. Then, they would rush through the territory without stopping for days at a time. The British were waiting for the Germans to attack Belgium in the center of the country, and they didn't protect the Ardennes, which was considered to be impenetrable. Guess what? They penetrated it like a bullet through a wine glass. The Germans encircled the Allies, and they pushed them back to the channel at Dunkirk. The British forces had to get home if they wanted to continue the fighting. So Operation Dynamo was initiated. 338,000 British forces were evacuated on the beaches of Dunkirk. The Navy got help from small fishing boats, and basically all the troops were evacuated. The following weeks, the Germans conquered France. What the Germans couldn't do in the First World War was done in a matter of months. France was split into two regions. The western and northern part was Nazi Germany, so they could defend the coasts, while the south became Vichy France. This was an authoritarian, so a free country that collaborated with the Germans. The people that controlled this country were Nazi puppets, people that work with Nazis. Now that France was no problem anymore, Hitler could prepare the invasion of Britain. This operation was called Sea Lion. After the British refused to surrender, Hitler wanted a quick invasion before the British were ready to fight. He first started bombing the coastal defenses for a smoother ground invasion. Then the RAF, Royal Air Force, installations like airports and hangars and radars to get air superiority, something that is very important in war. You see, when an army is trapped, for example, the only way they can get supplies is by air, since there are no barriers or anything in the air. Okay, you have enemy planes, but if you have that superiority, you have a bigger advantage for your troops. That's why when you look in history books, a lot of attacks are focused on bases with choppers or planes. Okay, now back to the Battle of Britain. The Allied planes had to fly almost constantly because of a shortage of pilots and planes. They had to reduce the bombings on airports by the Germans. They tried to bomb Berlin to take away the field's attention, and boy, they did. Hitler was so mad that he ordered to bomb cities now instead of installations. Kids had to be sent to the countryside, and those who stayed spent a lot of nights in bunkers or underground metro stations. That was the western part. Now the eastern one. It was time for Operation Barbarossa. This was the invasion of Russia. On the 22nd of June 1941, the largest land operation in history started. 3 million soldiers divided in 150 divisions of 20,000 men each, and 3,000 tanks were stationed from the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea. It went well at first, and in November, the Germans were within 200 kilometers of Moscow, the capital. They managed to capture huge armies at Minsk and Kiev, and many others. But then winter came, and they stopped moving up. This was because of a lack of material, and it was freezing. Coats were missing, food was pretty short, and the oil in vehicles was literally frozen. They also knew that they had underestimated their opponent, and they were pushed back very slowly. Meanwhile, in the United States, nobody was really into the war. They were once again supporting the Allies financially and economically, but the tensions were rising between Japan and America. Japan wanted to become a big boy, but to do this, they had to expand into China to get them sweet materials. Here, they committed horrible atrocities, like the Nanking Massacre. But China wasn't enough. No, they wanted more, and that more was the Philippines. If they wanted the Philippines, they would have to fight against the USA, since it used to be a colony. The Philippines are islands. Islands are surrounded by ocean. Ocean means naval combat, and the Japanese sucked at naval combat compared to the USA. But what if the American fleet was destroyed? Then Japan would have no problem. And so, on the 7th of December 1941, which was a Sunday, so the troops were unprepared for an attack, the Japanese attacked. 2,300 men and 20 American ships were either destroyed or crippled. You would think that that's a good thing, but no, most of the ships were out in sea. So the Japanese just woke up a sleeping giant. Months later, in June, the Japanese tried it again at the island of Midway. First, they distracted America by invading a small island in Alaska. This was the only time that a battle was fought on American soil. But the Americans intercepted a radio message, and they prepared themselves for another naval battle. First, they sent some bombers to bomb the Japanese fleet, but they were unsuccessful. Then it was the Japanese their turn. They were pretty successful, but the base still worked. Both sides attacked each other again and again, and eventually America won. Japan was so damaged that they decided to stay on the defense and not attack anymore. Whoa! Back to Europe. The winter ended and the Germans started moving up again. But this stopped in Stalingrad in August of 1942. The Germans had to capture the Caucasus oil fields, but to do that, they had to capture the city. But Stalin wanted to defend the city with his name at all costs. The Germans bombed the city like it was raining bombs. The Germans almost managed to capture the city, but the Russians kept fighting and troops kept coming, and they won. This was the turning point that the war needed. The German troops got reversed and they were being pushed back to Berlin. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe and comment, here we go again. To show that you made it this far, you can watch the second video about World War II if you click here, and thanks for watching, bye.